Hello, everybody. Welcome into our Sunday night webinar on local body politics with our lovely guest, Kathryn Ennis-Carter, who I will introduce more fully in a minute once we have a full house. And in the meantime, I think I might just share you the page that you can go to on the RCR website to find this resource and the information about the local body elections that are coming up. So what I might actually do is go back to the home page and I'll show you where to find it. So if you scroll down on the home page to the area that says take action, or you can just click on the action button at the top of the screen there. You'll find there the first tab or the first tile on that, the carousel is Council Watch. So you can click on that and then that will take you to this particular page, which also has its own URL, which is councilwatchnz.co.nz. That will take you here as well. And on this page, you can get the handbook that I'll show you in a minute, and you can find out more information about voting, being a candidate, and helping out. This is how you get the handbook. So you pop in your details there, and that will take you through to a link where you can download the PDF of the handbook. And so there's a bit of information there about why it matters, some information on how to vote, standing as a candidate, and how to help. So that's worth doing and worth sharing with people as well. If you're on social media or through friends and family on email or however you normally communicate. Let me just share the booklet so that you can have a little quick look of what to expect of the Council Watch Local Body Handbook. Vote, stand and help out local body elections 2025. So you have in here there's a contents page. It's basically into three main sections of voting, standing and helping out, and you can find in there's all sorts of information to help people through these processes, the timeline of when the various points are that we have to hit, with one of the big ones coming up, which is the 1st of August. The candidate nominations are closing. That's this Friday. And some of the key issues and what's at stake. You can go through this and have a look and find out about the kinds of roles that there are up for grabs and what kind of time allowances you need to be aware of, and the pay range and all of that sort of thing. So it's actually quite a comprehensive and well done document that's really helpful for educating people on this process. So get yourself a copy of that. And I think we will kick off now. Welcome in, everybody. It's nice to see you all in the chat there tonight. I will introduce our lovely guest to you. If you've been listening to RCR over the last year or two, you would have come across Kathryn Ennis-Carter before. Kathryn is a senior international consultant specialising in governance and public management. With a career spanning more than 35 years, she has dedicated her professional life to working and consulting for government, developing deep expertise in public sector reform, strategic planning and financial management. After earning postgraduate qualifications in social sciences, Kathryn spent a decade in New Zealand's public service, beginning as a policy analyst before advancing into senior management roles across both central and local government. She then transitioned into consulting, advising government agencies in New Zealand and internationally for 7 years. During this time, she was part of the consulting team that collaborated with the Department of Internal Affairs on the review and development of the Local Government Act in 2002. In 2003, Kathryn moved into full-time international consulting, advising governments across the globe. She has lived in 10 countries and managed short-term assignments in 7 others, working in regions including Central and South Asia, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Africa, the Caribbean, the Pacific Islands, as well as Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. Kathryn has led major assignments in multi-million-dollar projects funded by key international agencies such as the World Bank, European Union, British Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and the Inter-American Development Bank. Her work has focused on enhancing government accountability to citizens with expertise in national strategic planning, budgeting, public financial management, and policy development. Her extensive international experience has given her unique insight into the effects of globalization, the continuing influence of global elites, and the role of vested interests in governance in society. Returning to New Zealand at the onset of the COVID-19 response in 2020, Kathryn quickly smelled a rat and became actively involved with VFF from its inception. Since 2023, she has been a semi-regular contributor to RCR. Today, her mission is to leverage her vast experience in global and national governance to support VFF and RCR in driving meaningful change. So welcome, Kathryn. That is one heck of a a bio. It's very impressive. You are well placed to be giving everybody information on this topic, and I think we could just kick off. I mean, you've just got back from a big overseas trip. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but we can get into it, and I can start sharing the screen if you like. Or would you like to say something to kick us off?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Alia. Well, that was a heck of an introduction. But yes, I've just come back from Central Asia, working with one of the Stan countries, in a very interesting region of the world that most New Zealanders probably know very little about. But it's Central Asia is really all those countries kind of in between China and Russia, most of them ex-Soviet, and I find it fascinating working with the ex-Soviet countries. But it does do your head in after a month of being there and then the transition to being back here.
So tonight we're going to be talking about the broad topic of local body elections, and especially with the deadline coming up for those people who are interested in standing, as well as those people who are interested in supporting local candidates through their campaign, and some information on voting and what you need to know there as well. So let me see if I can just present this full screen. There we go. Can you see that, Kathryn? Is that?
Yes, that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Time to step in.
All right. So let's get started. And basically what we're going to try to do tonight is there should be something for everybody in this coverage, because if you're already decided to stand as a candidate, congratulations to you. And so if you're still thinking about it, as Alia said, there's just 1 week left. If you know somebody that you want to, you think should stand and you want to persuade them, you have to get on with it because there's only 1 week. Friday is the deadline. But this webinar has also been designed for people who are either supporting a candidate that they know they'd like to see elected, or want to be part of a group that's getting involved. And even if you're just a general voter and you want to make the most of your vote. Local government is really important, and we're going to talk about why you should be involved and what's at stake. So let's get right into it. Okay, so local government matters, and I think people have become increasingly aware of that over the last few years. I think we had a history where people kind of didn't take much notice of local government because we thought we could leave them to get on with the rates and the roads and the water and all that stuff. But a lot of things are happening in local government around the country that I think are alarming a number of people. And so it's interesting that despite all the councils being different, the same kind of things are happening all over the country. And we need to be concerned about this and why that's happening and understand it. And understand also that if we don't step in, then others are going to decide the future for us and for our communities, and others are deciding it right now and pushing things in certain directions. So this is really important for all of us, both locally, and the fact that it's happening all over the country in the same way tells us that it's not just local issues. This is actually a national issue. So we need to come together and take action. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So what we're going to do here tonight is just give you a kind of a how-to on how to influence your council, how to get involved, how to vote wisely, or support those who are standing. So let's go. So I want to just draw attention to some of the things that are happening over the country. And so a lot of people have been alarmed about significant rates increases that have been happening all over the country. And a lot of councils have had more than double-digit rates increases. And also people are concerned about councils in a number of areas where the debt is soaring. And we've also seen that councils have expanded beyond what most people consider to be council's role, which is the delivery of core services like the ones I was talking about before: roads, rubbish, supply of good quality water, and provision of council facilities. So we're seeing a lot of extra activities, and a lot of that has come through the so-called well-being clauses that were added into the local government legislation in 2019. So instead of the legislation directing local government to specific activities, which has always been the role, now it's very broad, and councils are directed to consider all activities that they could choose to take on for in the so-called benefit of their communities. So we're seeing those well-being clauses used to push a lot of virtue signalling projects, extra expenditure, very often wasteful expenditure. And meanwhile, the consultation that is happening is kind of lip service consultation. A lot of councils are sending out have your say surveys all the time, but very often if people respond to those, then the council goes and does what it is wanting to do anyway. And meanwhile, the bureaucracy of councils all around the country is growing. And the nature of the staffing in local government, local authorities is also changing, because we're moving away from where local authorities used to be staffed by people with technical expertise in those areas that councils were responsible for. Now, because we've seen such a huge emphasis on contracting out of all those services over the last probably two decades, what we're seeing now is that staffing in local authorities consists of several categories: lots of policy analysts, lots of contract overseers, lots of communications people who are writing lots of spin, and admin people. And along with that, we're seeing in a lot of situations, communities can see that the council staff, which consists of everybody from the chief executive down, who's actually employed by the council or contracted, that a lot of the agendas are being driven by what is in fact the executive branch of local authorities, which are the council staff. And councils themselves, the elected members who are supposed to be setting policy and direction, are becoming rubber stamps to put through agendas that are coming from the staff, and accountability is being lost with that. So why should we get involved? Just go back to the previous slide, please, Alia. Yeah, okay, I think I covered most of those things. I would mention one other interesting thing, which is that we're also seeing the influence of international relations on some of the councils. Wellington City Council, for example, very boldly claims its connection with the Rockefeller Foundation. So we're seeing external influences coming in local government that we haven't seen before. Okay, so recently the government, perhaps a little hypocritically, has been moving to encourage councils to do what it isn't yet doing itself very well. So the council, the government is signalling that they want to clamp down on extra activities and extra spending in councils too. They're considering introducing rates caps and tighter controls on financial management. They've signalled that they are going to move to scrap the wellbeing mandate. And those things are going to show up in the election campaign. It's going to really result in some quite interesting tactics, which will be on display during the election campaign. And people need to watch out for these because a lot of the status quo councillors and existing councillors who've gone along with all these extra spending, extra virtue signalling projects, really maxing out on the well-being stuff, and also doing things like appointing non-elected people to council committees and giving them voting rights. So those candidates are going to be faced with some interesting dilemmas. Do they own what they've been doing over the last few years and make a stand that they're going to fight government on these things? Or are they going to try and sit on the fence and make noises about, oh, well, we're now moving in different directions and make their own platitudes about reducing rates and shifting direction. So watch out for hypocrisy coming up. Okay, let's move on. So how can we get involved and what's important in getting ready for the election? So previously, some of us have already been involved in concerned ratepayers groups and we've been moving towards this. So, but we're moving from that stage now to we're very close to the actual election campaigns getting started. But you can still take action to build up information and to find out what your councils are actually doing. And some of this is hard work. And at this point, I'd really stress the last point, which is get a group around you to do this because it's very difficult for individual people on their own to do battle with council websites. They don't present the information that makes it easy for members of the community to actually get involved. And you have to know, where on the council website menus they put reports and things that you need to look at, like, for example, annual reports, which tell you all about what the council performance actually is. And it's often hard to understand the council plans and reports and things that they put out for public consultation because a lot of what's presented is very general. A lot of it's it's full of platitudes and rhetoric, and it's hard to really find out the detail of what's going on. So I do want to talk about the fact that you can still use, although you'll have to be quick, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act to formally request information that you need. And the timelines for that are, if you put a Lagoima request in under the Local Government Official and Meeting Act, you have 20 days for the council staff to respond. So you'll need to really, if you want to put in Lagoima requests now that are going to be useful during the election campaign, you'll need to get your skates on. because we've basically got 2 months left now. But you can still do that. And I do want to say a quick word about Lagoima requests. You need to really think about the wording. If you want to find out the detail of what council is spending money on, for example, and you can't find that by skating around the reports that you can find. If you ask a general question, like, for example, how much does the council spend on funding non-elected members to sit on council committees? If you ask that question, you'll get back a response that will point you to the council policy on meeting fees. And then you'll have wasted that whole month because they'll take 20 days to tell you that and you won't have actually found out anything. So you've got to ask specific questions like, what has the council spent on XX in the last year? Or make your question very specific. I myself fell in on this a while ago because I asked a question about what the council pays to non-elected members in terms of stipends and meeting fees. The council decided that because they didn't officially use the word stipend, they wouldn't actually divulge what payments they're making to non-elected members. So you have to really watch and be very specific. And in that last point, build a team around you. Use your networks. Even if you don't get people who to be part of a group, but you can still use your network. So, for example, if you know an accountant or you know a lawyer, ask them questions. Everybody likes to feel recognised that you're noticing that they have knowledge and skills. So, you can ask your accountant friends, can you help me with this? Where can I find information on XXX? And I know you know a lot about this, but I'm really having trouble finding what I'm looking for. So ask in a way that flatters them if necessary, but bring people with knowledge on board to help you. Okay, so if you're looking at what the council is doing, you'll know some things already. If you're already interested, then obviously your council is doing some things that you're concerned about. So dig into that, really find out, try and find out what the council is doing about overspending, overreach, poor consultation, and start using your own communication channels. Use flyers, develop your social media sites. Many of the groups around the country have been able to establish either their own websites or Facebook pages to get other people involved. And we'll talk further about communication and how to do it as we go through. Okay, next slide. So this is really only relevant now for the next week. If you, as I said before, if you've decided to stand, great. If you know somebody who you think would be a good candidate, then talk to them this week and try and persuade them, because we really need people to come forward. Let's go on. I'll talk about the communication stuff as we go. So let's assume that you've been able to identify some candidates that you want to support, and you've been able to be a part of a group or to form a group to help support that candidate. Now we need to look at the campaign tactics. Now, just one thing that I meant to mention just before, I'll just say that now quickly. If you're still looking for a group to get involved with, and there's a lot of concerned ratepayers groups or residents associations around the country, look into that. But some people have found that those existing groups don't necessarily support some of the values that you probably have. So be careful about putting too much investment into a group, and you might find that they're going along with some of the things that council has done that you don't want to support. So try and, if you get working with gathering a group around you, try and make sure that you gather people with a common concerns and common values. Now, let's talk about the challenge of getting involved and getting people elected to council. It is a fact that local government has been characterised by poor voter turnout. So it's really important that everybody does vote, and also part of our agenda should be influencing other people and getting them to vote as well. And what happens in local government elections is that a lot of people don't actually know much about local government, how it works, and many of them don't even know the candidates. So what will happen very often is people look at their voting paper, and if they recognise the name, they might just tick that name without really knowing what that person stands for, what they voted for in the past, and what their record is. So the thing that's most important about for new candidates and for you if you're supporting candidates is differentiating yourselves or the candidate you're supporting from the status quo candidates who've been there and been around and who've become part of the rubber stamp brigade over the last however long they've sat in the seat. So we need to cut through a lot of the noise and confusion and be really specific about what we want as voters and what our candidates that we're supporting stand for. Okay, next slide. So visibility is the main thing. Differentiation from the status quo candidates is the most important thing. So we have to use all our local networks. I knew somebody once who got elected to a regional council with one campaign tactic, and he just letterbox blitzed. And so many people voted for him. They probably didn't know a lot about him, just from the blurb that he put out, and they recognised the name. It got into their heads. So visibility is really, really important. We have to use all the avenues that we can to build visibility for the candidates we want to support. And you can do a lot that's quite proactive yourself. So let's go on. So this is really important. I think if we're thinking about what's the best ways to either support your candidate or get people voting, it's public meetings, one, and blitzing on the communication. And you can do this so don't wait for the council to organise meet the candidate events. You can hold your own meetings. And even if you just start with something like a simple flyer that says, are you concerned about this, this, and this? And get people to come along to a public meeting. And you can promote that through local posters. You can put stuff on Facebook and also word of mouth. Talk to people and do the letterbox thing. Get people involved in helping you with that. A lot of people who are interested and want to help will do things like letterboxing, whereas they're a bit nervous about fronting public meetings. So get people involved, get your friends involved, and get them helping with the things that they can do and are willing to do. And be proactive. Okay, next slide. So in terms of differentiation, this stuff is really important. So stay away from, if you're developing campaign slogans, we need to remember how effective short, punchy to the point slogans can really be. Remember the team of 5 million? You know, that was used very effectively in ways that, you know, we don't approve of, but it certainly had an effect. So to support candidates, we need to have these kind of good slogans. So stay away from the kind of platitudes that the status quo candidates will come up with, you know, or more effective consultation, you know, strong leadership. Oh, yes, you know, we want to reduce rates, all that sort of stuff. So get to the specifics, and slogans like ratepayers are not a bottomless pit. You know, ratepayers are not your money tree. You know, identify the things that you want, like the things that you regard as wasteful spending, and focus on those things. Be very out there about opposing rates hikes, because really what we've seen, the extent of rates increases over the country, in many, many councils is becoming crippling for people already. And it's going to hit those who are on limited incomes, and also those who still have mortgages and they have to pay for expensive rates as well. This is becoming really killing. And I hope many of you have seen Alistair Harding's great documentary about managed out. That will give you an idea where some of these things that are just going to force people out of their homes are going to end up. So name the specific policies or problems you plan to challenge, and don't fall into the trap of using the council kind of corporate speak jargon terms. Use everyday language, which is going to be much more effective with people. Next slide. So here we are. These kind of examples, you know, cut the fluff, that kind of stuff, or reminders that, you know, most people really want councils to focus on the roads, the water, provision of good council facilities like libraries and parks and all things like that. And, you know, get away from the general platitudes. And keep repeating, using those slogans, keep repeating them and use the same words on all the materials, and keep it punchy, so that these slogans get into people's heads and they remember them. Next slide. Now, this is important. You don't need a huge amount of money, but you do need to raise some. So again, public meetings are both great to be able to get your message out to people and influence people about the key issues in the voting, but they can also be an avenue for getting donations. So you can, you know, say it costs money for us to hold these meetings. We need a koha to cover the venue, please. And, you know, we really need your help with donations so that we can print flyers and get communications out. So ask people. We had somebody recently at a concerned ratepayers meeting who donated $500 just as a result of that kind of call. So don't be ashamed to ask for donations. It does cost money to get flyers out, and to do advertising. And ask your friends and supporters. Be transparent about telling them what their donations are needed for. And don't be ashamed to do the sausage sizzles and the cake stalls and the whatever. This is important, and we really have to get in and do what we can so that people will vote for the candidates who will change things. Okay, now I'm going to talk about voting systems. Most of the councils in the country are on first past the post. So in those situations, you can be confident that the person who gets most votes will get elected. Okay. But many councils have STV, and this is a bit more tricky. And it involves the same kind of issue that came up a lot during the general election, when people realised that if their party didn't make the 5% threshold, that those votes were reallocated across other parties. And so there was a lot of discussion about wasted votes. So many councils in New Zealand use the single transferable vote STV system, and many voters don't really know how that works. But basically, I'll read out the list of all the councils so you can know if your council is one of the ones that uses STV. So that includes Dunedin, Far North, Gisborne, Wellington City Council, Wellington Regional Council, Hamilton, Kapiti Coast, Marlborough, Nelson, New Plymouth, Otago Regional Council, Palmerston North, Porirua, Ruapehu, and Whangarei. So if any of those councils are your council, then you really need to think about how you're voting. So what the voting paper will get you to do, or say that you can do, is you don't just have to vote for one person. You can vote 1, 2, 3, 4, or however many choices there are. And I would suggest don't do any of that. Just vote and put 1 beside the person that you want to vote for. If you've got 2 candidates that you support, yes, you can go 1 and 2. But don't do what the system kind of seduces people into doing, which is, oh, okay, if I have to rank people, well, I don't really agree with so-and-so on this, that, or the other thing, but she's kind of a nice person, so I'll rank her as number 3 or 4. So don't do that. Just vote for the person that you want, and don't dilute your vote by giving those other choices. Because what will happen is, the way the system works is that if your candidate doesn't get enough votes, then the other votes will be distributed across the other rankings that you've given. So your vote will end up getting distributed, and that will happen in several rounds. So the lowest vote candidate will be eliminated first, and then the votes will be spread across other people. And if that still doesn't get them across the threshold, and there is a quota, then that will happen again. So again, the lowest vote candidate will be dropped out, and the pattern will repeat. So it's really important just to vote for the candidate you want. Now, about the quota, what that means is there is a threshold. So, for instance, if you have 4,000 people have voted, and there are 3 council positions available, then that the candidates will need to reach the threshold, which will be 1,000 votes, and then those 3 people getting 1,000 votes will be elected. Okay, so the quota is a combination of the number of votes and the number of positions available. So if you're voting for mayor, of course, there's only 1 position available. But if nobody reaches the threshold for positions where there are more than 1 councillor position available, the votes are just redistributed. If anybody's got further questions or didn't quite understand that, we can talk about it at the end. So let's look at after the election. So what I always say to people is that governance of any kind, whether it's for central government or local government, it doesn't depend just on elections. So, we don't vote every 3 years and then go away and leave them to it. Unfortunately, because of the nature of things that are happening, we have to stay involved now. And so community participation is not just elections, it's staying involved and being involved and keeping elected officials accountable all through that 3-year term. So if you've been able to establish a group, and even as an individual, I'll talk about this in a bit more detail in a minute. But if you have been able to establish a group, I belong to a concerned ratepayers group, and we made a decision and realised quite early that although we were initially focused on gathering information and looking for candidates, we realised that we needed to stay as a group to support the candidates once they're elected, because there is all sorts of things that happen to councillors, particularly if they're on their own and they get elected into a council situation where there's a lot of status quo councillors. So they will very easily get isolated in that position. So we've got to stay connected, supporting our candidates, helping them to hold the other councillors and mayor to account, and continuing to support them because they will face challenges if left alone. It's very easy for people to be sidelined if they're arguing against the pack the whole time. Okay. So this is just what I spoke about before. New councillors often face a lot of pushback from the staff and from other councillors. So stay on board, stay active, keep your group together, and be involved. So this is all about, it really starts with you. If we don't stand up and get involved and change the direction that many councils are going in, nasty things are going to happen in the future. Nasty things have been happening for quite a few years, and they've been building up and building up, like the sort of boil the frog developments that we've seen happening in central government. That's been happening in local government too. And generally, we don't like the direction. But without you taking action, the same status quo agendas will continue. And you don't need to be an expert, just start from wherever you are. What you know, what you're concerned about, talk to people, try and build a network around you, and get involved. Support your candidates and step up yourself. Okay.
There's just a little funny at the end there. Thank you so much, Kathryn. That was really great. Some of the groups around the country have got these council watch signs for their pop-ups, and so this was one of our groups out there the other day with some of the funny signs that they have. And I've been taking note of some of the questions that have come through. Thank you, Kathryn, as you were giving that really great presentation. Thank you. Some of these things are quite tricky concepts which have come through in some of the concepts in the comments in the chat, particularly around the STV and the redistribution of votes and that kind of thing. Some of that information is in the booklet that I showed you at the start of the session, and I can share that again soon. So go and have a look in there, and we'll make a note to try and get more information out in like an infographic sort of form about this STV particularly. voting system, just to show people exactly what we mean when it comes time to voting. What does it look like, what to expect. But some of the questions that we have here, David asks, from where can we get more money for council operations that do not come from rates? Do you know about that one, Kathryn?
Well, councils do fund not just from rates. Like councils charge all sorts of fees and charges for consents and planning related activities and all those kinds of things. For example, in Kapiti, I think 70% of the council's revenue comes from rates, and the rest is from other sources.
Thank you. And
I see somebody put up parking fines. Yes, exactly. And dog registration and all that
ah,
stuff.
yes, I got a nasty one the other day. Zari says, is it good to be influenced by overseas organisations like the Wellington Council is? She's concerned about that. When you said that I guess that they had money
Yes.
from Rockefeller, was it that you had said that?
Well, no, because you know what some of these international foundations and organizations are and the kind of gender agendas that they're promoting. And so, we've only recently, really, probably in the last 6 years, have seen this kind of emphasis creeping into local government. It did start decades ago with sister cities, which seemed harmless enough. But now we're seeing a lot of agenda-based developments coming in like through the back door through local government. And so, for example, co-governance is one of those that we're seeing creeping in to what councils are doing. And I can give you some examples of that if we have time.
Hmm.
But organizations like the Rockefeller Foundation, councils are starting to send their staff off, overseas to expensive conferences, and of course it's very seductive. Then, those council staff get involved in driving those agendas in their own councils, and this is what's happening. So we need to be aware of these influences.
Hmm. A few people actually have asked about leaving LGNZ and the positives and the negatives of that.
Well, it's kind of it's a bit of a dilemma for councils. Local Government New Zealand, which is an organisation that I actually know quite a lot about because I was involved in as a consultant with Local Government New Zealand for 3 years back in the late 1990s. And subsequently, when I was also involved with the development of the Local Government Act 2002. And Local Government New Zealand was set up as an advocacy body for elected members. That's what they're supposed to do. It's not what they are doing. They've become some sort of conduit between central government and local government. And of course, that's because the executive of central government has been full of Labour Party supporters during Jacinda Ardern's government. Similar things have been happening with Local Government New Zealand. And so it's not actively acting now as a advisory body or an advocacy body to support local elected members. It's become something else. And some agendas from the previous government were being driven through LGNZ, and some still are. And there's changing dynamics now because the current government is wanting to set different directions. So Local Government New Zealand has become political in a way that I think is not their role.
Yeah, somebody's just asked, can we translate it? It's Local Government New Zealand,
Local
isn't it?
Government New
LGNZ.
Zealand, yes.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with LGFA, which is the local government funding authority that was
Mm.
set up in 2011 to basically be the vehicle for council loans.
Yes, and that's one that has come up with respect to the managed out tour and the role that the clauses play in these loans that are related to climate change projects and the with tying councils back into following the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN. So it's all quite tangled when you look into it. So the more people we can have in these positions who actually understand what's going on, the better.
Yes. And
Somebody,
I should say that the original concept for LGFA, the Local Government Funding Authority, was to provide the best investment opportunities for local government borrowing, and the borrowing was supposed to be for infrastructure.
mm,
It seems to have broadened out a bit, just like the Local Government Act broadened out a lot.
yeah.
Things change over time, but yes, that's something else that central government should act on.
Mm. Dominique asks, if you're new at this kind of responsibilities, what is the best way to start a group to help you? I'm assuming you're meaning perhaps if you're wanting to stand for a position in council or on the board. What would you say? What would you think the best way to try and get a group around you, Kathryn? I mean, I know I would say probably join your local VFF group, and
Yes, indeed. But start with your mates. Start with, talking to your friends and your colleagues and your neighbours. See if you can get a dialogue going about the things that they might also be concerned about, that you're concerned about, and just go from there. And then perhaps the next step might be a Facebook post to try and get interest in getting a group. Um, some of the concerned ratepayers groups have started with a public meeting that was just organised from that community perspective. Are you concerned about increasing rates? Come along to a public meeting. And then
mm,
when people turn up, you can canvass at that meeting and ask people if they're interested in getting involved in a community organisation that's trying to work to change the direction of council.
yes, and if you are looking to stand yourself and get a hold of that booklet that I showed before, I'll show it again in a moment. There is a whole section in that little book that we've made that tells you about, some of the issues that are important to people from our community that we hear coming up and over again. So if they were things that you resonated with, you could put together the things that you care about and then, just do things like join some local Facebook groups that are for your community and create your own Facebook page for your candidate page and just start posting in places and saying these are the things that you care about if people and invite them to follow you on your page, and then you're going to get a bit more of a following if you can put out there what it is that you are interested in or you care about and that you want to do on behalf of other people. Then they're going to say, oh yeah, I agree with that, I'm going to go and follow that guy. And so you'll gather people in that way as well. um Please, I need lots of help with Auckland Council. Somebody say yes.
Yes,
That's a
I
big
agree.
one, that one. Yeah. um, that's very true. I seem to have lost my extra page that I had for the Council Watch, but I'll just grab it again so I can share it with everybody. So for those who were late on the session, on our RCR site, you can go through on the home page, okay, scroll down until you get to the Take Action tab, and then you can find the various campaigns that we have going. Click on the Council Watch one, and then you can get the handbook here. There's little buttons throughout the whole thing, so you can download this book in a PDF form, and that will show you. It has all sorts of information in there about what we've spoken about tonight. So get yourself a copy of that. Can Kathryn write my prezzo for the weekend? Somebody say. Let me see. Oh, there are so many questions now, so many comments. I think that that was the gist of the ones that I took down, Kathryn, unless you've seen something else in there that you that we haven't answered.
No, but if people have got further queries after we finish, you can send in your queries to VFF, and I'm sure VFF will send them on to me, and
Mm.
I'll certainly answer everything that I can.
Yeah, great, thank you. And I'll just do this one more share of this booklet. I've just found it again. So, in the booklet, you've got the three different categories about voting, the understanding the voting systems, standing, how to start, campaign tips, talking points, the various rules that are involved, how to support your candidate if you're not wanting to stand yourself or you're unable to, but you'd still like to help out. Some of the questions that you might like to ask at these candidate meetings to find out who the people are that are on the same page. Um, Local body election candidates, and there's some disclaimers in there as well. So I know that people were worried about some of the voting information, and there is information in this document about that. So there's all sorts of things in here to do with the various different roles and positions that you can be standing for or helping people, helping to support others to stand for. So there's the information about how to vote with STV and how to vote with First Past the Post, and some of the councils that Kathryn listed out before. Um,
And one thing to comment about too is that uh, central government actually has quite a useful little website about STV. So if you just enter go on the internet and write something about how does STV work, you'll come across that, and they've got quite a good little presentation there that you go through in a sequence, and it shows you how the votes are redistributed according to the lesser rankings. If, for example, the candidate that you've voted for drops out because they didn't get enough votes, and then it goes to these redistribution rounds. But it's quite a good little source of information. So you can find that just by going on the internet.
yeah, great. Well, thank you. So I'll just stop that. So you can go there. Can you please post a link to get this booklet? Yes, so just go to the rcr.media and then follow through from that homepage there on the Take Action sort of section, and you can get through to the Council Watch page. Otherwise, it's www.councilwatchnz.co.nz, and that will take you there as well. I'll pop that in the chat. Um, I think, yes, some other people have said to mention about the managed retreat documentary. It really is a very good one if you'd like to go and watch that. If you haven't seen it already, it's on the RCR site under the RCR 360 category, and you can find that there. It'll just be a few back in terms of the episodes that have been published, but it's there. It's really good one for sharing with other people, because everybody lives, we all have a home, and people want to protect their home. So it's, even if people are on different pages with other topics, it's one thing that we can come together on. I certainly know that that's been the sentiment out here where we live in our community. So I think in terms of tonight, it'll be really great. I would expect that this webinar will be up tomorrow on the website on RCR. So please share it with the people in your networks. Encourage those people who might be sounding like they're wanting to stand to do that. We really need good people in these roles, and if you're in a position to help them, equally help them out and help them with their campaign, and encourage people to get hold of this booklet and to learn more about the process. So I think a big thank you to Kathryn for helping this evening. It was a wonderful presentation, and we really appreciate your contribution in helping everybody to understand the situation better and to be a part of the change.
My pleasure. And everybody, just get out there and do something and vote.
Lovely, and have a wonderful week, everybody. We'll catch you all online again soon. Good night.